Welcome to fulfilling this belly sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
Good morning and happy Tuesday to you. Today we're talking about the courage of tear and using that courage to actually dig down deep past our egos, past our bravados, and discover our authentic selves. How do we do that? Well, let's talk about what that all means and how we can utilize that today to better find our better mental space. Before we get started today, as always, I want to say thank you to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed us on any of the platforms, and give a huge shout out to those who haven't yet. Please like, follow, subscribe, press the magic button that gives you a notification about our show each and every morning. We want to say how much we appreciate all of you who have joined us at some point, whether liked, followed, and subscribed or not, and we deeply appreciate you passing this message on to those who may need to hear those words. I want to give a huge shout out to New Reality TV. newrealitytv.com is a streaming channel dedicated to just the mass perspectives of our spiritual understanding, that we may find a better mental space through our spiritual understanding. They're all connected, and it's a wonderful thing when you can get many different perspectives, hopefully finding one that resonates with you. If you do happen to find yourself with a few extra coins jingling around the pocket, want to put them to good use, by all means, pay.akoutlaw.com is our link that you can use to just provide that donation and help us to move this message even further in real life and, of course, across these technological platforms. For those of you who may be interested in learning out more about me, my shows, my teachings, and certainly asking questions to discover more about yourself, including my life coaching service, it's all available at NorseWhispers.com. There you will find all the information about me and again, my message. So hopefully you will find it. This morning, our chat is available via Facebook Live Chat. So for those of you who want to jump on there, and I believe you can actually do it in YouTube as well. So be sure to check those out, and you can do those. Ask your questions, pose your comments, whatever it is that you feel moved to provide. So today we're talking about tear, and we're talking about courage. The god Tyr was first recognized, you may or may not know, he was first recognized really in the times of the Germanic tribes, before the Norse were really recognized as the Norse. As we find in history, the Celts were beginning to move east and north. They would kind of migrate away from expanding a Roman Empire, and they would migrate up through what is today Germany. And you find, as we read the history, we find where we have a fairly large body of individuals who would slowly slip away, excuse me, from the recognition of Danu, of course, being the mother goddess of the Celtic beliefs. And as they came further north, they would obviously be engaged in much more a warrior's type of situation as they fought off the the inhabitants, as well as the Roman Empire that seemed to be following them up into Germania. Ultimately, in my case, my ancestors would wind up in the furthest northeast corner of Germania before making the migration across the Elbe River into what is now the Jutland of Denmark. These people recognized here for originally as the god of justice and balance. He really brought this understanding of the law, not both of man, but as of the laws of nature as well. So he really brought together into our general consensus, or into our general psyche, this idea of applying law, justice, balance. Ultimately, the sagas would go on to demonstrate Tyr as having the courage to place his hand in the mouth of Fenrir, that Fenrir may be chained. This chaining of Fenrir, of course, we all know as Loki's son, would be necessary to prevent destruction of the realms, particularly as the gods, according to the sagas, were trying to really establish it and maintain it. Fenrir had a tendency to be very destructive towards that. And so, after several trials and errors, we find that the dwarves were able to forge a chain that could restrain Fenrir. However, Fenrir kind of offered the ultimatum for us, or for him to allow the gods to chain him. One of them had to be courageous enough to put his hand in his mouth. So the god would have to put his hand in the mouth of Fenrir. And as you could imagine, Fenrir does what Fenrir does, and he would bite off that hand. That hand was attached to the god Tyr. Now, Tyr didn't think anything of it. When Fenrir offered this ultimatum, Tyr recognized that it had to be done. It had to be done for the justice of all the other realms to exist. So if they wanted them to exist without chaos and destruction, someone had to do this. And Tyr, being who he was, did it without question, did it without reservation, as he knew, he knew what was going to happen, and he did it despite that. This really demonstrates to us, or it should, really demonstrates to us this idea of courage, intrinsic courage. What is courage? Well, some people say, well, courage is the absence of fear. That is incorrect. Courage is the recognition of fear and the need to accomplish whatever it is, and so we're able to still move forward. Now, also, what fear is maintaining our cognitive space within our mind. We've spoken about the thought process and how we process everything through, we convert it to energy, we pass it through our mood filter, right? Our emotional filters here behind our input. drop it down into our heart, where our heart then assigns it some biochemistry. That biochemistry is then moved back up into our brain, where our brain now recognizes not only the experience, but now the emotional connection to that experience. And it builds, as it converts it, this biochemistry, as it converts it back into energy, it has a tendency to expand within the mind. Now, this also comes from a little bit when we think about fear. We're more often than not, we're also including a pretty healthy dose of imagination. Imagination is far more fearful than actual fact, right? I mean, we imagine things much worse than what they really are. So depending on how much energy is kind of built upon this conversion back to energy from the biochemistry, we can find this energy just kind of expanding to take up all of the space. Now, my ancestors refer to the space at which this is done as the horn of feeling. And the horn of feeling is simply that. It's a drinking horn at which halfway on the one side is a hole drilled with the tube that comes from the biochemistry. This is where the biochemistry comes in, or the silt. The silt then settles to the bottom of the horn. And as the biochemistry comes in, it's converted to energy in much the same way that we find, say, a carbonated beverage would do in a mug, right? So as we pour in the root beer, if you will, as the liquid strikes the glass, we find this foam rising off the surface of the root beer. And this foam can overfill the mug and good old-fashioned root beer. In much the same way, we find our emotional energy. Now, if, per se, the energy does expand over the rim there of the horn, we find, most often than not, the brain, the rest of the brain, is incapable of managing this energy. It doesn't know what to do with it. So you find it kind of affects the physical form. So this is where we have physiological symptoms: sweaty palms, rapid heart rate, shallow breathing, anxiety attack, panic attacks. All of these things are all caused when this emotional energy kind of stems over the top of the cup or the horn and now affects the rest of the brain around the horn. Normally, in our normal everyday run of the thing, we have a space that exists at the top of the horn. And there's just like this lid that's placed very gently on top of it. But that space is reserved for us to kind of do some management of this expanding energy. For those of you who haven't tried it, when we see a mug of root beer as an example, and we're filling it up and we find that foam is starting to really rise really fast, it's really a matter of knocking it down, right? So how do we do that? Well, my parents would have taught me back in the days when there were A&W root beer stands, that lick a finger, drop it into the foam, the expanding foam of our root beer. And what's going to happen is that's going to have an inverse effect. It's going to kind of slow the growth, if not stop it altogether. It was either the salt or whatever it was in the contact with your finger in the foam that would then prevent it from continually expanding. This is the way we were able to keep the foam in the mug. Well, the same thing applies with the energy within our minds. As our energy is expanding within the horn, a little cognitive space along the top is that finger that we can put in and manage the expanding energy. We can then control it, manage it, make sure that we're in control all the time. This is a very important function within the brain. If, as an example, we decide, or we're too late, or whatever the case, or it's just too much, and that energy overruns that cognitive space, and we can no longer think about it. This is where we get into terms like blind rage, blind love, all of these different things where we're incapable of thinking our way through it. We become overwhelmed. Our emotional energy is becoming too much. I've spent probably the last week or so just kind of reviewing and just kind of taking some time to review or watch, I guess, videos on some of these platforms, TikTok or YouTube. And one of the ones I'm looking at is the announcements of babies, the arrival of pregnancy, or the proposals, marriage proposals, and telling our family and first looks with children. Very emotional scenes, and they're done wonderfully, and I deeply appreciate. And obviously, the ones I've been watching, I'm so impressed by the men within the videos who are genuinely expressing emotion. So they're really ditching that stereotype type thinking and just really bailing on that and being who they are. And so and the women in the videos, wonderfully done. Anyway, what this is showing is that there's a lot of emotion, and as I allow this emotion as I'm watching these videos, and of course I'm a very emotional guy, so I'm taking in this emotion, this energy, and it's really popping for me. And so I'm really absorbing this emotional energy, but yet I'm keeping it connected. I'm managing this energy within my mind. And essentially remembering, and maybe what it does is it brings back memories from when my shieldmate and I, so many years ago, got married. Soon thereafter, we were expecting our first child. And so all of these things, all of these memories really play a part in driving this emotional energy. But I have to maintain a lid on it. So I kind of say, all right, whoa, all right, hold on. Let's tamp it down a little bit. If I'm driving, or not driving, but if I'm out and doing something, or I'm meeting with someone, or whatever I'm doing, I have to maintain a control of this so that I can still be a social equivalent over here. My dog seems to be enjoying the morning. So it's a matter of maintaining that emotion and maintaining my cognitive space where I'm looking at this event, I'm processing this event, and I'm chunking it down to a manageable level to where I'm still in control. I maintain emotional control. This is super important. This is why this cognitive space is so critical. I am going to take a real quick break. When we come back from break, I want to talk about how you can look at managing your emotional energy as it's expanding, as it's being converted back into energy that we can then use for our own memories. How we do that, how we actually maintain that cognitive space. So we'll take a real quick message. When we come back, we'll talk about our cognitive space and how to manage it.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for taking that quick break with us. And thank you so much for New Reality TV, newrealitytv.com. You will not be disappointed, and I'm sure you will find a perspective that works for you. Today we're talking about using courage to discover our cognitive space and maintaining our cognitive space so that we can manage our emotion. Now, sometimes this overflow of emotion or overflow of energy from the horn of feeling is completely acceptable. I have found myself this week, as I've kind of spent a little bit of time watching videos on TikTok and YouTube about marriage proposals and discovery of pregnancy, all of these revelations, and they're very emotional. And of course, it brings tears to the eyes if you watch it, right? So, and it's a good thing, right? So when I actually have physiological symptoms, i.e., I'm watering up at the eyes, right? Getting choked up. These are physiological symptoms, which indicate that there is energy that's flowing out of my cup, out of my horn, to the rest of my brain. And the rest of the brain doesn't know how to deal with it, so it enacts a particular function. So we can see these depending on how far that energy comes out of the horn. We could have panic attacks, anxiety attacks, tearful watering of the eyes, the rapid heart rate, shallow breathing, sweaty palms, whatever it is that your body then is trying to deal with the energy of this, this energy that's coming out of the horn, and it's not used to it. It's not. In some cases, it may not be programmed for it, so it's trying to deal with it. So these physiological symptoms should be our first indicator that our horn is overflowing. All right. Now, how do we kind of get the genie back in the bottle, so to speak? How do we control the energy that's now expanded beyond the rim of our horn? Well, the first thing we have to do is now we're going to rely on extrinsic energies. We're going to need some help extrinsically. Now, in my case, I decide to use affirmations. Affirmations are the best way for me to remember that, hey, I have a responsibility here, and I have to kind of keep this in control. So, my affirmation may be, hey, I'm going to use a bracelet. I have a bracelet or rings, maybe earrings, maybe a totem here on a necklace. Whatever the case, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Anything that helps me kind of refocus. Bring my focus back to what I need to do to be successful. So, affirmations are a great way to do that. Affirmations are just maybe little written notes that say you're stronger, you're braver, you're whatever, right? You're beautiful. Anything that will help me kind of refocus my energy, right? Because now I'm putting my finger in the expanding energy. So we're able to kind of tap it down. Now, conversely, the big thing to know is with this expanding energy, sometimes it's okay to just let it go. All right. Now, in my case, as I've been watching these videos, I find myself kind of teary-eyed and maybe even want to slip out, and I'm a little choked up, fairly emotional, and I'm enjoying it. Why? Not because it's crushing or it's putting me in a dark place. Nothing like that. I won't let myself go that far. I simply recognize the beauty within these women and men who are expressing themselves on the internet and becoming vulnerable, opening themselves up, of course, to criticization, because there's those people out there. But more importantly, they're sharing with us a very beautiful moment. And to me, the observation of this beautiful moment is worth a tear. I'm okay with that. Would I let it overwhelm me? Absolutely not. Maintain the finger over the foam. When the energy starts building up too much, I watched maybe too many of these videos, I'm not sure, or I get kind of sucked into my memories where I remember other women and other men throughout my past who have done very similar things. And I start going down this road of I'm so sad, I need to do this or that. Nope. Hold on. Now we're putting a control on it. We are in charge. We have the authority within our own mind. When we surrender that control, that mentality, this is where we kind of surrender to this victim-like mentality and allow these longer terms, depression, anxiety, over things, allowed to take over. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We want to avoid allowing ourselves to go that far. Okay? So we're going to maintain a control. And that's what the cognitive space does in our horn of feeling. Now, we have to be courageous. And what I mean by that is yesterday we talked about money. Now, for those of you who watched yesterday, you probably recognized that our sound wasn't working. So I'm deeply apologetic. We didn't recognize that before the video was cut. Anyway, one of the downsides of live video. Yesterday we spoke about the control, Mani's ability to help us recognize the balance and control of our thought process. We're in charge. We have the authority at which to dictate what energy we're going to allow to expand and how far we're going to allow it to expand. And when we start losing that control, or more dangerously, surrendering that control, is where we find ourselves start slipping down this path of where we don't want to be, right? We don't want to allow just loss of control, surrendering of all control, and then just being open to whatever energy happens to be coming along. Energy can be mistranslated. It can be, remember, our imagination has a good big part of the energy at which we're converting. So we need to be cognizant of that. We need to be aware of that. That's a super important key for us to have a better mental space, is to be able to be in charge of being up here. No one else has authority there unless you give it. You have to give it up. You have authority within your mind to feel any way you want, whenever you want, irrelevant of the experience you're having. So you could be in, let's say a funeral, and recognize the positive instead of the negative. Funerals have a tendency to be very somber, very sorrowful. But when you think about it from another perspective, and instead of looking at the loss of your loved one, we look at the gain by having them as a spiritual entity, by being able to communicate with them all the time, whenever we want. Have them send us energy and us send them energy in return. If we think about their passing from the physical realm to the spiritual realm as being more of a we put the most positive light on it that we can. When we do this, we're converting, we're taking charge of how we feel, right? It's the way we maintain our authority within our mind. We don't surrender. And don't get me wrong, it's completely okay to grieve. Absolutely. Absolutely. But when we're grieving in a controlled environment. We're not allowing it to envelop us and take us to places we don't want to go. It's okay to mourn the loss of a friend or a loved one. Absolutely. Especially if they were taken before their time or what. Remember, that's our perspective, not reality. Our perspective is they left before we were ready for them. We can allow that mindset to roll, or we can say, you know what? I'm really sad they're gone. I miss their embrace. I miss their conversation. I miss the love between us. Or we can decide to recognize them as the spiritual entity that they become and now embrace our relationship in a different way. Both work. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at things that allows us to control that cognitive space. So, next time you're feeling a little overwhelmed by maybe a depression, by maybe anxiety, stop for a minute if you can. Just focus, maybe get some affirmations, maybe get a totem. And just say, nope, let's bring it back. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to feel the warmth of love, and harmony, and an embrace of whatever. All right. So remember, you are the authority. Sometimes, as Tyr demonstrates for us today, sometimes it takes courage. Really, what we're going to talk about today. That's really what it's about. Is you being in control, you not surrendering, and you becoming that warm, loving, embraced individual with whom you want to be. All right? So let's embrace Tyr today and recognize the courage to look past the ego, to look past these other things and actually find the peace and harmony that we're looking for. All right? All right, my friends, I wish you the very best Tyr's Day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow where we'll speak about the wisdom of Othin. And we'll also, tomorrow night, we'll also be answering a question that you've asked in email or through our website, where you can always ask questions. And if I decide to make a show about it, or if we make a show, by all means, we'll send you a free t-shirt that's yours to keep. No shipping, no handling, no cost, no nothing. You just sit by your mailbox and it'll show up. So, where you are in the world, don't think that, I'm in South Africa, mail delivery is a little sketchy. Your shirt will be there. Find your mail carrier and he'll deliver a shirt for you, or she'll do it. All right, so I will see you tomorrow for Othin's Day. In the meantime, remember, you are the authority within your mind. So reach for a better mental health, reach for control of your emotion, and your life will find the peace and happiness that you're looking for. Love and light, my friends. Happy Tyr's Day.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.